Hi, everyone, and welcome to the episode of EV Owners Lounge. Today, we're joined, as always, by Mark and myself. Mark from Mobile Array EV, an app designed to share your home or business charger with other people. And we're joined by a very special guest, Andrew Till, Mr. EV himself, and joined in his EV, I presume.
Yeah, that's right.
Introduce yourself, Andrew, and
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel called Mr. EV where it's called Mr. EV, but actually it's about home green tech as well. But I've got a couple of EVs. I'm sat in the Nissan Leaf, the good old Leaf at the moment, while an electrician sorts stuff inside. So that's why I'm in here, freezing. And
Ah,
I should turn the heater up a little bit, but then there'd be too much noise. So anyway, that's me. I'm Andrew.
cool,
well,
thank you. I heard it's a good soundproof way to kind of take calls and things in the car. So yeah, it's a
Well,
good
that
idea
makes
as
me
well.
feel better about it. Yeah.
Anyone's watching live, please pop your questions in the comments in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. Today, we're all discussing everything to do with the EV market in 2024. So we'll cover all kind of vehicles that have been released and go through the facts and figures, maybe if we've got ones that maybe excite some of us. So yeah, let's go straight into it, I think. Did you want to begin with Andrew, getting your take on what's the best electric SUV that you've seen come out this year?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one really because the term SUV covers a whole lot of different shapes and sizes, doesn't it? Some people would say that my Kia e-Niro is an SUV, a kind of a crossover. It's a small one, but um, so in terms of this question, I'm going to talk about big SUVs because they're the ones that people probably talk about mainly. The Kia EV9, I think, is the best SUV this year of that sort of size. It's a 6 or 7 seater. I think it looks very cool. Kia technology is brilliant. Kia Hyundai are the same group. They've both got the same fantastic stuff like vehicle to load, which means you can power your appliances from your house on it and stuff like that, which is great in a power cut. And it's comfortable. It's got massage seats. It's massive. For me, I like small cars, so it's actually too big for me really. And we've only got one child and a small dog, so we don't need anything that size. But for people that do need all the space, the EV9 is pretty difficult to beat, I think. You get
it,
quite a lot. You get quite a lot for your money, even though it's still a
yeah.
very expensive car. It's still way cheaper than the Volvo EX90, which is also a 7 seat. So yeah, the EV9 is my pick.
It would be my pick too. In fact, I think it's going to be my next one. And,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's actually a very bizarre reason, Andrew. So when I saw it first in Dublin at the Nevo show with Derek Riley,
Yeah.
and it's the fact that it's an inverse Z of an indicator light. That
Okay.
so when I saw the indicator go on that car, and then look everything else that went with it, I thought, wow, this is a pretty cool car.
Yeah.
And I have parents-in-law and 4 dogs and 3 cats, so I have an excuse to have a large SUV.
Yeah. Well, definitely that would suit you down to the ground. I mean, we just moved house from Canterbury to East Sussex, and I've got 4 chickens and the dog. And I did the move with all of those animals, and I was in the little Nissan Leaf, and I was thinking, really, this is the time I really need an EV9. So yeah, amazing for ferrying stuff around. A very comfortable car. Although my wife called it a bath machine on her review because it it's quite wallowy, and
Was
I
it?
was driving a bit too quick.
Ah,
So on country roads, she found it a little bit vomit inducing. But I think that might just be my
oh.
driving and the fact that it's such a long thing. But still,
That
despite that,
reminds
she would
me
still
when
get
I
one.
first moved to the States and I was given a rental, which was a Chevy Impala,
Oh yeah,
or as I called it, a boat, because
yes,
it literally went from
yeah,
like a boat when you were steering it. It was a terrible car, absolutely
right,
terrible. Anyway, so
yeah.
talking of terrible cars, what's the worst SUV kind of car that you've come across?
Difficult really because most EVs are good. It's very difficult to find a bad EV, really. So I was going to say the worst one is probably the EV9 as well, just because it's massive and it's completely unsuitable for English car parks or I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but British car parks. and I just
Yeah,
think it's far too big for most people. But
yeah.
for those that need the space and the size of it, then it's great. But yeah, I think we should have more small cars, really, rather than big
Yeah.
things like that. So that's what I would say. I don't think there is a bad SUV EV because I
So,
think they're all generally very good.
you always give me the nice segues, Andrew. So, what's the best small car, small EV
Well, the,
that's been around in 2024?
yeah, well, I don't think anyone's going to get it until next year, but it's the Renault 5, isn't it? I think the Renault 5 is got to be the
I,
best.
I mean, I saw it at EV Live, and I didn't drive it, unfortunately, but I'm sure driving would have maybe changed a little bit of my mind. But it seemed a bit basic inside for what it looks like on the outside, quite a high tech car, but on the
Yes.
inside, it seemed quite basic. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you seen it or driven the Insta?
I've seen it. Yeah, so I
Uh,
went to Hyundai recently and saw it, and funnily enough, that would be my pick. So I did a tweet or whatever you're supposed to call them these days recently, and I said, "What would you pick? You know, the Renault 5 or the Insta?" Is a head versus heart
yeah,
question, I think, because the Renault 5, I personally look at that and I think, my God, I need that car. It's amazing. But the Insta is so practical, the way all the seats fold down completely flat inside. You can sleep in there if you want.
yeah,
Also, Hyundai technology, I just think is really good. And
yeah.
I love the Kia that I've got. I've loved the Ioniq 5 when I had that. So the Insta would be perfect for us. And that's probably the one of the two I would get, even though it's an uglier car, I would say. But it's probably more high tech, I imagine, inside
But
than the Renault.
people obviously will get smaller EVs because that suits their lifestyle, right? So,
Mm.
one of the cars that I've always thought was really cool looking. I keep thinking of the Cool Wall, the old Top Gear Cool Wall
Oh,
from
yes.
Carlton, right?
Yeah.
What are the rules for a cool car? And I keep thinking Citroen Ami,
Yeah.
and because the only problem is I thought because it's a quad cycle, you don't need a full license, but apparently you do, unless you're of a certain teenage years.
Right.
Because I was going to get it for my parents-in-law to just potter around the city, around the town,
Yeah.
because it's more than they need, and it's actually secondhand is very very cheap. It's very
Yeah.
Have
cheap.
you driven one, either of you? Because I have, and they're extremely slow. They take a very long time to get up to their maximum speed of 30 or whatever it is.
Yeah, that would
Very
be my
practical.
reservation. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
my
Very practical.
yeah,
reservation. I
yeah,
think
but
if it,
I'm not driving it. The in-laws are driving it. So
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if it did 40 miles an hour, that might not be so
yeah,
bad. But
yeah,
I was going to recommend it to my sister-in-law who lives in London. But there are occasions if you get out of London, then obviously you need to go on a 40-mile-an-hour road, and if you're in
yeah.
that thing, you'd be terrified and you'd be annoying everyone behind you. So
I would be
yeah,
scared to go on a motorway with that thing. But yes,
yeah.
at EV Live next to us was is it Microline? Microline?
The Microlino, the
Lino, that's it.
Microlino,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And I was
it-
just about to say that is very cool. Yeah,
yeah, but that goes faster, right?
it does. It
It
does.
does.
Surprisingly good space in the boot as well with that. Even though it's just a little tiny two-seater thing. I would
Yes.
love it. I would love it if everyone drove those around cities and stuff. I
It
did.
just
So I went to
it freaks me
Amsterdam.
out having the steering wheel
I
in
was
the
kind of in the mid.
engine of the car.
Yeah,
Right? It's
I
just
know.
a bit freaky. Keeps making me think: is this steering wheel actually connected? It
Yeah.
obviously must disconnect when you open up the door. So anyway, what do you think is the worst that you've seen of any
Ooh,
kind? Van, car,
oh.
small
Again,
car.
yeah. It's just really difficult. It's so difficult trying to find a bad EV. And I'll tell you, the only way I think you could describe an EV as bad is with the infotainment. I think that's where EVs really fall down, is with the infotainment, because still there are EVs that I think you can buy an EV and it won't tell you where you have to charge. If you plan a route, it won't tell you you've got to charge there. And that's where a lot of them fall down. And where Tesla leads the pack, the Renault 5 is also very good. That's got Google operating system. That's fantastic. All the Renaults are really good for that. But so many other EVs are just a bit basic. Mainly the Stellantis ones, I think, from what I've seen, are not too
Yeah.
good with that route planning.
I
Yeah.
think the other
Um,
thing that I think is the iX. It's such
Yes.
it looks and it feels when you drive it a little bit cumbersome, a little bit, which is for a BMW you wouldn't expect, but it feels kind of oversized, with actually not huge space inside, but it's like an oversized crossover or whatever it is you want to call it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just
I think we
doesn't
can
feel.
safely call that one an SUV. I think that's big enough to be an
Yes.
SUV.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just you obviously with all the news that you've heard recently about Luton closing for the vans, and they're blaming the net zero targets for that.
Mm.
And it seems like some manufacturers, I would say legacy manufacturers, have actually opted to do some more hybrids and change their strategy to go all electric. But I think what people don't realize is that the car market in general is having problems, not just electric vehicles, right? And
Oh yeah.
the factories and everything that is closing is not because of just net zero targets, although that's what they like to blame. It's the fact that if you look at the actual numbers, which I'm sure you do from time to time, that they're actually um, bad for diesel and petrol. In fact, they're worse than they are for EVs. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's put that politicky kind of negative-y thingy somewhere else. What would you say that in the last, because you review quite a few cars, right? You've driven quite a few.
Driven a few, not as many as I would like, but I've driven a few. Yeah.
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 What feature would you say that you've come across in 2024 is the one that stands out for you?
What feature?
Yeah. What kind
Yeah.
of capability you saw in
Um,
an EV that thought, wow, oh, that's cool. That's good. I like that.
yeah. You know what? I would just say that I would go back to Google, the Google operating system. So I drove a Polestar 2, which is not even a new car, but I've drove that this year, and I was just really impressed with just how good Google OS is. And it was, as I say, it was the same in the Megane, and it will be the same in the Renault 5. So just in terms of, it's just we're so reliant on infotainment in our cars these days, and you've got to make sure it's a good one. You want a good infotainment system, and
Mm.
the Google one, I just think is so good. Second only to Tesla. Tesla's still the best, but
Yeah.
the Google one comes pretty
'Cause
close.
I also drove a Polestar 2, but I plugged in my phone and used Apple Pay.
Well, that's the funny thing. So, given that it's Google, it's got the best CarPlay implementation I've seen, where it projects it both onto the dashboard
Yeah.
and the screen in front of you. So,
Yeah.
it weirdly for a Google car, it was the best CarPlay car
Yeah.
I've driven as well. So,
Yeah.
I was really impressed with that. Yeah, but yeah, I think in terms of features and stuff, okay, the massage seats in the VW ID.7 that really impressed me.
Oh
That was
wow,
a very comfortable car. Yeah,
that's a very rogue
yeah.
shout. Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Yeah, it's not enough to. It's not enough for me to say that every car I buy now has to have massage seats, but the massage seats in the ID.7 were even better than the ones in the EV9. So that car really surprised me, given Volkswagen have been struggling a little bit.
Do you
I
think
really liked that.
do you think the ID.7 is there to kind of replace what Passat drivers would normally drive? Like it's kind of
Yeah, I
into
think
the
so,
EV.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's very comfortable, lovely to drive. I think any Passat driver would love it if they got in it. And you can get an ID.7 really cheaply, I think, on leases at the moment, because Volkswagen are desperate to get rid of them. I think so. So it's a good tip for me. I would go an ID.7. It's a massive car, but I would still go for it if you're the kind of person that drives a lot and you don't want a Tesla. Then ID.7 is a great option.
What would you say is the best kind of both new and second-hand affordable EV? If you had to say this is the best value for money, both new or second-hand.
Yeah, I'm a Kia and Hyundai fanboy, you see. So I would say a second-hand Ioniq 5. If you get a second-hand Ioniq 5, you'll be having great fun. Um, I love that car so much. It charges fast. You get 18 minutes charged to 80%. It's comfortable. It's even my wife likes it. I mean, that's quite that's a big thing. And it looks better. I still think that looks better than pretty much any other car on the market. And you can get them really cheap now. And we bought ours a few years ago, and then we sold it, and we actually made a profit amazingly. But now they're so cheap on the secondhand market that you can get a really good one. Just just over like 22,000 or something, and it's a great car. So
Yeah, yeah.
that would be my pick. But really, again, anything Megane. I love the Renault Megane. I thought it was great. The Kia e-Niro, like we've got, you get them relatively cheap now, and that's a really efficient car, but it charges very slowly. So that's why.
I think one of your fellow YouTubers suggested that the Vauxhall Mokka, e-Mokka, was one of the worst cars on the road.
Yeah. So we tried a Mokka, and I didn't like. It's got a weird driving position. You've got quite a big bonnet, so I didn't like the proportions very well. I actually like the look of it from the outside, but I didn't like the proportions. The infotainment is old Stellantis and pretty awful. So you'd have to really rely on CarPlay or Android Auto, but then you can't do the good route guidance with charging stops easily with that without plugging in a dongle, all this sort of stuff. So it feels a bit kind of basic. It's quite a bare bones car. It drove okay. I mean, we did a family trip in it, and it was fine, but it was no more than fine.
Yeah.
So again, I think anyone that gets a Mokka or any of those Stellantis cars, if they're used to driving a petrol car, I think they'll like it, that it's smooth and all the rest of it. But it lacks a lot of bells and whistles that I feel the electric cars should have, and I think that's primarily down to the infotainment.
I think the prices of those now are much more affordable as well. Actually, they're one of the maybe higher on the depreciation side, because my family were looking to get a Mokka electric one, but look at the second-hand market, and I think they're like 13,000 or something ridiculously affordable.
Yes.
Which is maybe what you're alluding to about perhaps the performance of the infotainment and the lack of bells and whistles. But
I think if you're going to get a Stellantis car, I think the Citroen EC4 I think is probably the better of the two. I would say it feels more comfortable and a little bit more refined, but still it all comes down to this infotainment. I did drive a 20. I always get it mixed up. 206, 208. I can't remember. 208. Yeah, I drove the 208 to Italy, and I actually really enjoyed that.
You think if you drive all the way to Italy, you'd remember what the car was.
I know. Well, I tell you what, it's just because I always forget with Peugeots, because we used to have a Peugeot 206, 208, 306, 308. I don't know all these numbers. So I can't remember, but it's a 208, isn't it? But I actually really enjoyed that, despite its, again, clunky infotainment. It's just that was a really nice little fun car to drive. So I would recommend that. On the used market, that's pretty cheap, and it's the same basic thing as the Mokka and the Citroen EC4. They all share the same platform. It's practically the same car, but just more efficient. The 208 more efficient, being smaller.
Also, the cheapest.
Citroen it's Matt from Ireland. Citroen E-Space Tourer. I'm not sure I've ever seen one of those. But,
that's the big van, isn't it? Yeah. I have seen one. Yeah, so I saw one at a charging stop in Italy again, actually. But I've not driven one yet.
Actually, I saw I asked Paul a similar question. Paul Kirby, the electric van man. I was at London EV show yesterday. I asked him a similar question, and I think he talked about vans for a bit, which I zoned out. Sorry. and then we were standing next to a Maxus pickup truck.
Yeah.
And it's like a smaller, same kind of squatness as a Ford Lightning, but UK road size, right? So it actually looks very, very nice and pretty good tech in it, and 9-seater van, but that's a bus, isn't it? 9-seater, that's a bus.
Pretty much a bus. It's a big thing, isn't it? Yeah. But I mean, that's so Maxus. That's a Chinese brand, and it's a pretty amazing what the Chinese are coming out with. So at any point we're going to be flooded with very cheap, very capable
I do hope
cars.
So. I think the only thing that's going to help get mass adoption quicker is cheaper cars.
Yeah. And to that end, so the MG4, I should mention this. The MG4 is a very good EV, and it's incredibly good value as well.
Yeah.
And if you shop around, especially near the end of the year, you get some good bargains. I think if you shop around, you can get a new one for like 21 or 1,000 or something like that. So they're really good. The only problem with them, I've heard a lot of issues about the lane keep assist can be it can try to kill you, but
Yeah,
by
to
putting you in
be
the other
fair, I
lane.
had similar problems in the
Yeah.
Polestar 2 trying to kill me. So
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
yeah.
interesting. I didn't know that in the
Well,
Polestar.
I think partly because it switched on the steering wheel, and I didn't realize I'd switched it on.
Oh,
So
okay.
and it's not. I don't think it was steering as maybe it was lane assist or something. It was something that basically jerked the car and my steering wheel, and I
Yeah.
what the hell is going on?
Well, see, this is perhaps a little bit off topic, but I think cars are getting worse in many ways. So my old Leaf is about as bare bones as you can get, but it doesn't have lane keep assist, so I don't have to turn anything off the moment I get in the car.
Yeah.
I just get in it and I drive, and that's so nice because the Kia EV9, brilliant car, but my God, you had to go to the menu to turn off the thing that warns you if you're going too fast. So if you do 31 miles an hour, it will
Yeah.
go beep beep beep, and that's no good. That's not fun
Yeah.
to drive, is it?
But there must be a
Um,
way of defaulting it because I would turn all of them off.
yeah, well, they can't do it by default because of whatever European
can't?
regulation there is. So they've done an update, and you can now turn it off from the steering wheel, which is sensible. But when I had it, I had to go into a menu and then go to that, turn that off, and it's no good, is
Yeah,
it?
that
So
eventually I figured it out in the Polestar, but I was
good.
halfway back from Newcastle at the time, so all the way there and the
Right.
halfway back, I was fighting with this bloody vibrating, jerky thing that was going on in my hands, which I thought,
Yeah,
how can they put this stuff as a safety feature? And it seems to be the exact opposite. But anyway,
yeah, exactly.
um,
Yeah.
I did see yesterday a Skywell. You probably haven't heard of that car, but I
I've
did
never
take
heard
a
of it.
video. You have heard of it,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Because I thought it's kind of a mid to large sized SUV that I was looking at.
right,
Leather, wood inside, 36,000. I was
right.
thinking,
Yeah,
whoa, wow. That
yeah, amazing.
I mean, I don't know what it's driving. I obviously don't know what its quality is in real life, but it looked very well made, and it's similar to its history is similar to BYD because BYD started as electric buses,
Okay.
and Skywell, which is a variant of the parent company Sky something, is also a Chinese electric bus company.
Right.
And because everybody thinks BYD is somewhat new,
Yeah.
except Smart Car, our partner, has been he's seen a BYD electric bus, I think 20 years ago, driving in the NASA location, which is right almost next to his house. So they've been doing
Yeah.
it for a long, long, long time. So
They
it's
have.
similar
Yeah.
to these guys. So, but yeah,
It's
I think yeah,
that's the only thing. So that's the only the difficulty that they have, the Chinese brands. The genius of MG, of course, is that they just bought MG and they've got a brand ready to go, and everyone knows MG. BYD are struggling a little bit more, I think, with just trying to get out there, and they're sponsoring everyone they possibly can to try and get the name known. Although it's a bit weird because you see some of their cars with "Build Your Dreams" at the back, which is
yeah,
looks
yeah.
tacky as hell. But anyway, so it's a long journey. Skywell are going to have a bit of a struggle, I think. It's not enough, I think, to be cheap and a good car. You do have to have a good brand as well, I think, and
Speaking
it'll
of
happen,
techie
but
and
it
good
takes a while.
brand, not that I think it's necessarily techie, but techie and good brand. What do you think of the Jaguar rebrand?
Right, I think it's awful. Yeah, absolutely bloody awful. I looked at that and I think, my God, that is terrible. So branding is my day job.
Is it?
But I
Okay.
understand it. I understand completely why they've done it, and I think it
Yeah,
makes sense. I think it makes sense for them. And what they've done is you can't buy the amount of PR that they've just generated. I mean, they would have spent a lot of money on it, but all of the oh my God, it's woke. They've gone woke. All this sort of stuff. It's brilliant. They're loving it. They did it for that reason.
yeah.
So
No. But
um,
I keep thinking it almost feels like they've put the cart before the horse because if they're going to rebrand it in this way and appeal to Gen Z or Gen Z or whatever you want to call it, and
mm,
they need to have vehicles that actually that demographic is actually interested in. And
yeah,
I'm sorry, but an I-Pace is not it, right? So
no,
they have to come up with a product that actually um, then goes with the brand that they've just, who they're targeting and the demographic. And it seems like unless they've got something up their sleeve that I'm not aware of, they don't quite have the product to go with the brand that they've just launched.
No, but I think they've done it this way to get all of this out of the way, all of this disgust around the changing the logo, and all that sort of stuff. No more cat, on the. They've done it all now. So when the cars come out, we talk about the cars and not about the brand.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they've done it. But I really don't like the new logo. But what I've seen of the styling of the new cars, they've just released some little shots, and I think they look amazing actually. So I think, and I love the look of the I-Pace, but they've obviously gone completely different. They're no longer appealing to the pipe and slippers, typical golfing Jaguar customer.
Yeah.
And they're going to alienate them completely, I think, with these new ones. So it is definitely a gamble.
They need to have volume sales, right? So to make this work.
Well, they're going even more luxury, aren't they? Apparently. So I don't know how many woke Gen Z luxury car buyers there are. It's a bit of a gamble, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I think from what I've seen, I love the look of the little shots I've seen. I think they look amazing and different to everything else that's out there, importantly. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. But they're announcing the first car in early December, aren't they? I think so. But what I have heard from someone who worked at JLR is that whatever car they've been working on is amazing. So I'm hearing a lot of buzz about it.
Okay.
Whether that will translate into a good car and sales and all the rest of it, I don't know. But I think they've been smart to get the branding out of the way first. Also, what I would say is, obviously Jaguar haven't been doing that well, and there's a phrase "go woke, go broke" that a lot of people say about. Now they're more "go broke, go woke." So I think that's quite an interesting thing that they're doing there.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with it. But I hope they work. I hope it all works out. It'd be lovely to see decent, funky new cars on the road, and see what happens.
Yeah. I asked this question of a number of people at the show yesterday, so I'm going to ask you the same question. I did give you some chance to think about it, so as I did people yesterday. But what's the one thing in 2024 that's kind of stood out for you in the EV world?
Yeah, and I had a really good answer when you mentioned that earlier, and I've forgotten it completely now. So I've got two. No, there's two. So the Renault 5, I think, is actually going to be the big thing, because the Renault 5 is already appealing to petrol heads, which I think is an important step. It's well priced, as far as I know. Is what, around the 23,000? Is it 22, 24? I can't remember, around that mark. So it's well priced. It looks amazing. The tech in it is good. The infotainment is good, which I'm obsessed with, of course. That ticks a lot of boxes for people, I think. So I think that's actually going to be, even though it doesn't come out properly until next year, I think that's one of the most important things for 2024. The other thing, it's far more geeky, but the other thing is all the charge point regulation stuff that's now come into force a couple of days ago, was it? Whenever that was. That's going to do big things as well. So charge point operators have to have, was it 99% uptime and all the rest of it, and all the data has to be easily accessible. They've all got to be on roaming networks, all this sort of stuff that I think will benefit all of us. So those two things combined make, I think, 2024 quite an interesting year. But I think it's just going to get better from next year onwards. It's an exciting time.
Cool. Well, we're near the end, so
it's flown
anything
by.
else you want to say, Andrew? Anything we can do for you, or the people that are watching this can do with you?
Well, no, a new conservatory would be nice if anyone's watching this and wants to buy us a new. The bloody thing! This morning. I woke up to smashed glass outside, and one of the panes had fallen down. So I was up there in the pissing rain, with safety pins and a bin bag, trying to fasten it to the outside of this conservatory, because all the cappings are rotten and sort of. Anyway, watch my video on my channel about it. But
so that's very strange YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know, right? Watch the channel for us. My wife and I, arguing about it. I want to knock the bloody thing down, but she wants to keep it. And so.
Well,
so watch my channel for fun. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. As always, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And a pleasure talking to you both as well.